All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the March 9th, 2022 meeting of the Curriculum Instruction Committee. And Dr. Cuppett, I believe you said there was no public comment.
Yep, correct. No public comment.
All right. The minutes from February 9th, and I'm not seeing, I'm going to push that one off a little, but remind me, I'm going to highlight it to come back. So we give Ms. Johnson a chance to jump on. Mr. J, do you have any comments before we get started?
No, at this time, thank you.
All right. All right, Dr. Cuppett, we are ready then to get into presentations.
Well, thank you all. Good morning, everyone. This is the annual report to the C&I committee about requested changes in our either new courses, pilot courses, discontinuation of courses, as well as any curriculum standards that might be changing. And so our team has been involved with putting this together every year for the board. My team will be seeking approval for these changes or adjustments to our standards, at which point, from a process perspective, they'll be moved forward to the full board for approval at the March 23rd meeting. So we're going to rotate through. I do want to point out to the public that would be watching this that we're going to go slightly out of order on the agenda, in that Kim Hirschmann, our secondary visual performing arts specialist, is going to share two items at two different points on the agenda because she's in the middle of band adjudications at one of her schools. And so we want to get her in, be able to have her share, and then have her release and go work with our students. So thank you, Ms. Yoho, for that flexibility on the agenda. I appreciate that. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Hirschmann to share for the board the information that she has. And then once we've determined there are no more questions for her, then we're going to dismiss her at this time. So good morning, Ms. Hirschmann. If you can introduce yourself and go ahead and share what you need to today, I appreciate it.
Good morning. I'm Kim Hirschmann, the Curriculum Specialist for Secondary Visual and Performing Arts. And before I begin, I do want to take a moment to thank the board for this evening's recognition of Arts in Our Schools Month. That's the month of March. So thank you for that this evening. And thank you for your flexibility in today's scheduling. The first course that I have for proposal for pilot is a middle school fine arts elective course called Contemporary Media Arts. And the course description is written there, but essentially it's a course designed for students to explore digital media such as animation, illustration, and audio video production. Students will work in various formats. They can use web-based software on their Chromebooks such as Wixie, Adobe Spark, Canva, WeVideo. And ideally, this course is meant to get students to explore storytelling, advertising, using these digital tools as an effort to move us towards COMAR compliance and introduce media arts into our middle school fine arts program. It's a great opportunity for students to explore digital art, which could potentially be a pathway that they are interested in for the high school level, and provide some foundation if they're interested in going into digital photo, computer graphics at the high school level. So the proposal is to enter this into pilot for the 23-24 school year, because we're past the point where we could introduce the pilot into our system next year because scheduling's already, in play. So ideally, this would be something that we could provide for the schools to have an optional elective in the following year. Dr. Cuppett, do I move to my next?
Yep. They'll raise their hand if they have questions.
I was waiting for that.
I'm sorry.
Question. I was waiting for the Q&A thing to come up. So real quick, you mentioned before two questions. One, you mentioned before that we have to wait till the next school year to get it going. Will there be any issues with compliance with that? With the delay by chance?
Oh, as far as compliance with COMAR, Mr. J?
Yeah, for waiting, having to wait. Will we have any issues with that?
So thankfully, the Maryland State Department of Education understands that COMAR compliance in the visual arts based on current schedules and way school structure is a bit of a challenge. I did reach out via formal memo with Dr. Albin at the time with the Maryland State Department of Education and laid out for them the steps that we are taking. And this is one of those steps in that direction. So we think we're in a good spot with MSD, and we're not concerned about them having, I think if we were making no progress, there certainly would be concerns, but I think they're supportive of the direction that we're going.
Okay, great. And then second question, something that I'm going to be championing going forward. You'll hear this a lot from me in different areas. I'm really focused on our students leaving classes, especially in high school. This is middle school, so a little less emphasis, but I'm still thinking in that direction. I would like us to have real world artifacts. I think every student in SCPS should finish high school at least with as a requirement. You know, like, maybe not from COMA or not like on pain of death or pain of non-graduation, but we should be aiming to have our students leave us with resumes, with applications and with scholarships that they've applied for. And that one of our points of pride should be that, hey, our kids applied to, our kids have received this much money in scholarships from writing applications while they were in school, part of their classroom curriculum. So with this course right here with digital art, I know you've heard the phrase NFT before, or just things of that nature. But I think with digital art, and right now the president's about to announce a innovation. What he called it, the phrase was constructive. I think it's constructive or appropriate innovation. Basically, he's signing a executive order in law about cryptocurrencies. So this is a real thing, and so I want our kids to be aware of it at the least. I'd love to see some artifacts in that regard, because if you're making digital art, that's literally all NFTs are. Digital art, you put it on a medium and you mint it and certify it, and then it becomes viable. Our kids right now, they're 12-year-olds who have sold $24 million worth of digital art. And so if we have this course, we should be looking at that, and that should be something we aspire to have as an artifact for us. And I can give you more information on that if you need more information, but I really want us to have true life, real world artifacts coming out of SCPS. So.
Absolutely. And I wrote that down because we are still, in course development, and we still have significant onboarding for our staff. So we will absolutely take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to the next part. For visual performing arts, pilot courses recommended to continue in pilot. We have our middle school dance courses. So one is just a general dance course, which the curriculum for this course has already been approved. We just have yet to implement it and pilot in a school. So I'd like to keep it in pilot status. That way, if the time comes that we can implement it, we are still ready and approved. And the same for the inclusive dance, which is a middle school dance elective as well. So if those are able to be offered in a school because of staffing, we have the appropriate people and the appropriate programs. I just would like to keep that up to date so it's available for our administrators.
Any questions about those two?
So I remember hearing about this last year. Was it COVID basically that kind of put a halt on that?
Yes, we had a school that was going to do an inclusive dance. They had a teacher who was dance certified, and we just did not want to start that in a virtual environment. It would not have been a successful start.
And do you anticipate how many schools this will be able to run at?
I can't anticipate that because it's heavily a site-based management decision. But certainly, my job is to advocate with administrators and just help them through that process if they're interested in implementing.
And last question, do you know, like right now, what staff you have, or and of course, well, yeah, because they've already done their scheduling. So what was the request for staffing on this?
That's not a question that I can answer, but it seems Dr. Cuppett can add.
So, Ms. Yoho, just to make sure I'm understanding, are you asking if we've asked for staffing positions to support these courses, or are you asking how principals are using their current staffing?
Yes, let me step back a minute. Did this go in the course book as an option for next school year?
It has not gone in the course book because we were trying to identify schools that would run it. However, if that's something that we would like to see, we can certainly implement that in the course book in the future.
Okay. All right. So as a pilot, you just work with the principals, see where there's the desire for that course. Okay. Again, this is where my lack of secondary, I don't even remember helping my own children do their schedules. It's been a lot of years, but I don't even remember helping. I think the schools did everything.
So Ms. Yo, as an example, if you remember, we ran initially the 9/11 to the present history course.
Mhm.
And we actually didn't put that into the course guide in mass until we were ready to run that. And so we worked with a particular teacher at Linganore High School, and he helped develop the course. So pilots run a little bit differently in that respect. Once it's approved as a new course for all, then it does go into the course guide for all students.
And that rings a bell. You want to kind of try it out, work out the kinks and all. So I guess my question goes back to, do you know which school or schools this would be offered at?
We do not have any schools that are going to offer it for next school year.
All right, thank you. Sorry it took so long to get around to that. Was my ultimate question. Thank you.
I just have one question. So these courses have been in pilot, but they've never run.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move on to my pilot course, which is recommended as a regular course offering. At the high school level, we did pilot Unified Dance, and we would like to recommend this for regular course offering. We have a few high schools that are interested in taking this on next year, who Urbana High School was the school that just ran it as a pilot this year. And I did want to share just a couple of student quotes that came from our review of the pilot, because I thought that they were just truly outstanding. I wanted to share with the board. One of our students said, "I would definitely take Unified Dance. It's so much more than a dance class. The life lessons one learns without even realizing it are so important. The examples the mentors set for the entire school is contagious." Another student said, "It is really life-changing. It has inspired me to major in special education." A third quote is, "I would tell the school board to come observe a class when it is offered in the fall at Urbana High School or attend one of the recitals. The energy and excitement is so contagious. Please continue to offer Unified Dance." And the last one is, "It made me a better person and would make my whole day just coming to this class."
That's great. Thank you, Ms. Hirschmann. That's great feedback when we hear it directly from the voices of our students.
Can we adjourn the meeting while I feel so happy now? It's okay. Let's go on. That's wonderful. And that's the kind of thing. I already sent an email to the rest of the board, cluing them in that these are coming to them on whatever month we're in, March 23rd, for approval of whatever's recommended, so that please take a look. But I think Mr. Johnson, Ms. Johnson, and I kind of learned we need to inform them better during committee reports. So I'm trying to get some quotes. Those were great.
I think
And if
that's
you'd like Ms. Hirschmann to forward those to you, we can do that, Ms. Yoho. Okay. And Kim, that was the last one for you, right? So if you're okay, we're going to hop down to, I think you're ready to go to discontinuation, Kim, is that correct? So we're going to hop down on the agenda and go to the discontinuation cover sheet. Kim?
Okay, let me just get some tabs in order on my screen. Okay, so the proposal is for the discontinuation of creative arts in 7th grade as the 0.5 required credit for middle school students. And the brief rationale is that requiring the 0.5 creative arts in 7th grade breaks up the opportunity for students to engage in a sequential, meaningful choice art pathway, leading to rigorous upper level choices in high school. The broad survey nature of the course is more reflective of an elementary experience. Students should be allowed to select their arts elective each year of middle school per COMAR and specialize in that art form in middle school per COMAR. That is the short version. I have significant support that I can provide if you would like me to keep going, or if we want to pause for some questions. I am happy to keep going.
Ms. Johnson?
So with the this help me understand the framework, please. Would the contemporary media arts course be something that would replace the survey course that we're dropping?
The goal is that the contemporary arts course would also be a choice elective, just like visual art, theater, and our music courses. So it would be another optional elective, not a replacement for the 0.5 requirement. we'd ideally like for students to be able to select a fine art each year. And it could be that they take 3 years of visual art. It could be that they take a year of theater and would like to try visual art after that. But we'd like to offer full electives in visual and performing arts and not the 0.5 requirement.
Okay, and again, this to help me understand with respect to Comar, they need to have a 0.5 experience in your classes.
Yeah, it must be the Bell Cycle at Walkersville High School. Yeah. So actually, Ms. Johnson, Comar actually is the fine arts requirements under Comar have a complexity to them that we're trying to navigate. And I'll just give you a couple examples. One, it requires that students have an arts experience in each grade level. So that's one thing to think about. Then it goes on to say in another part that kids have to have an opportunity to experience a variety of visual arts, right? So a variety of arts. It could be visual, it could be music. And then it also says they should also have the option to specialize in a pathway. And so if you think about that, we have to offer options, we have to offer pathways, and we have to have it available in each grade level. Well, that's a challenge when you think about all of the other things that we require students to take during middle school. Now, I will tell you, MSDE is aware of the challenges of the way that Comar is written. So what Ms. Hirschmann's doing here is trying to meet or at least have a pathway for students so that they can do a variety of those things, have an arts in every year, have a pathway of specialization if they want to. But it seems to us in the Comar that a student could simply do a variety of courses during their middle school experience. So they may not be a kid that wants to do band all 3 years, but I guarantee you there are kids that want to do band all 3 years. So that's the complexity of Comar that we're working through right now. And it's not an easy thing to do, which is why I think MSD is being very accommodating and are supporting us in our journey.
Okay. I'm used to the post-secondary environment where we usually start off with a survey course that actually can be a general education course. So like, for example, in math, where you can do some statistics and some, calculus and you have the different varieties there in one like gen ed course. So I'm like, that's a framework I'm used to. So this seems like it's taking that survey part of visual and performing arts away and then just replacing it with like more focused courses and so
yeah,
I understand that.
And Ms. Johnson, the challenge of creative arts too is there was so much from a variety of contents within there that it was often very challenging for a teacher with one content background to do the whole shebang, right? Yeah. So for instance, I could, as an arts person, I probably feel comfortable teaching an arts survey class that includes drawing, painting, ceramics, and sculpture. But that's different if I'm doing a survey course that includes visual arts, but now performance arts and music. So that was always one of the challenges as well. Okay. It's like, how do we provide a high quality course in that regard? So that's one of the things that's been a factor in this conversation.
And I'd just like to add, I think the course was added into FCPS at a time when the world was different and the arts were different, and we wanted to have something available to students. And we've come so far in what we can offer for students by a qualified teacher in an individualized pathway that the necessity for creative arts, just quite frankly, is no longer there, because we have these courses that exist and we have the teaching staff that exists that can teach in a specialized area. And the course Creative Arts is heavily surrounding multiculturalism, and we already have national standards that reflect that in each of our fine arts courses. So we don't need a standalone course that's a requirement. If students are selecting the course of their interest, they're going to get that element within the curriculum of that particular course.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then as part of my thinking on this is because the Frederick community is so well known for our arts. In general, I want to make sure we're doing justice by our own community and having the strength of course offerings that reflect our community. So
absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I consider it's my personal and professional mission to ensure that we are, meeting the community's desires and standards. And I do think if we can create a situation where students are not forced into creative arts and can select the opportunity that is in line with their personal interest, that we're going to have more success as an arts community in general.
Okay, thank you very much.
I chuckle a little because Ms. Hirschman, I'm pretty sure this is the one that my first year on the board, your first meeting at CNI, you were like, let's get rid of this. And then you had to do some research. And so I chuckled when I saw it. I said, I'm pretty sure this is the course that she's had her sights on, and for good reason. My only question is, and this is probably, again, my lack of comprehension of how middle school really works. But I know from being a fifth grade teacher and doing articulation meetings, students that weren't, proficient on state testing and didn't get electives in middle school because they had to get tutoring. I didn't know if maybe a 0.5 course was something they could still fit in, or if they'll still have option. We got to work on getting them some options. So I just want to know how it might impact students in, say, special education.
In my experience, to my knowledge, students who are in intervention or double intervention do not access electives in a 0.5 capacity. So I don't think it would negatively affect the current model of intervention.
Thank you. So that's a separate issue that we have to work on, but that was my only question. Mr. J, do you have any questions for this one?
No, just kind of the same thing. If we can find ways to have our kids get real artifacts, they're dancing, then part collaboration with the Weinberg Center, that kind of thing. I want to see our kids see that there is no ceiling. Same thing I did when I was in the classroom, and even now, like I try to get my kids looking out the door. When textbooks are printed, as soon as they're printed, they're dead. Life is happening now. So as long as and a lot of kids, this will be their passion, and the arts and has been like honestly a salve during this time. I wouldn't have survived COVID as well as I have without the fine arts. I want to thank everybody who's made TV and made dancing and made videos that helped keep me sane. And so our kids can do that, with skill. And so we like kind of like the vision of Links, but almost spread around the county. Just make that real world artifact connection whenever we can. So that's all. Thank you.
And I think to me, what Mr. J just said about passion, and I think that's been one of your concerns, that students that were forced to take this, it wasn't because of a passion, it was because they sort of had nothing else to take. And the alternative that you're trying to get them to do is follow a passion rather than just take a survey course.
And sometimes the unintended consequence was that they maybe dropped an ensemble and they've been studying an instrument since 4th grade, and all of a sudden they maybe didn't realize that they should stay in band, and there's choices. They have to choose their world language. So we're just trying to create a situation where they can make better choices that are more valuable.
Actually, on that note about choices, this is a talk for another day, but we really, really, really have to streamline how we do class selection. I did it with my 9th grader this last year. It's a maze, and I promise you, me and my wife, and my son, we're actually. I promise you, we're intelligent folks, but it was a hard climb. And so it shouldn't be so hard to sign up for electives and to pick classes and more than one form. It's trouble right there. More than one place for information. You have to centralize and streamline class sign up because it is not okay right now. That's something that we need to look at going forward. That's just not, Ms. Hirschman, that's not for you. That's just for Dr. Cuthbert and those who set up our schedule courses and selection. It's not smooth at all.
Thank you, Mr. J.
Okay, do we have anything else for Ms. Hirschman? Do we understand what we need to convey to the other board members? All right, thank you. Happy adjudications there.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, so next up, we're going to hop back to the proposed pilot courses. So we have some proposed new courses. One of those is secondary health education. So Mr. Griffith, Brian Griffith is our secondary health and physical education curriculum specialist, and he's going to talk about the addition of a 0.5 health to the requirements based on some things that have been happening at the state. So Brian, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share some of the stuff that we're working on with health education. The state mandated last year to increase graduation requirements to a full credit of health education. We determined in Frederick County to split that health education up into a half credit in ninth grade and then a second half credit in 11th grade. And the reason why we wanted to split it up is because we realized that this was really some of the only students do have limited opportunities to discuss health in some other courses. We work closely with social studies and incorporating biology, English as well to incorporate some substance abuse lessons and some other things. But we wanted to split it up to provide that difference opportunity and the difference in age and development of the student as well. And the reason why we selected 11th grade and not 12th grade is because of students who are leaving. We wanted to make sure that we didn't impact and have a mandatory class there that would impact their graduation requirements or anything else and catch up things or things like that. So we're proposing this half credit course. Next year, we will be, this course is for students graduating in the class of 2025, which are the current ninth graders. So we're proposing that this course be field tested next year in two of our high schools, Tuscarora and TJ High School. Those are some of my leaders who have been working on this course for the past 9 months. And then for full implementation in the 23-24 school year. If you take a look at the curriculum, you'll see that it does follow the current high school health 1 course, the current high school health education course, basically looking at a skills-based health education opportunity. So first we have some of the skills listed there and how the students will achieve some of those skills and what we expect. And then we also have the content listed there as well. Some of the changes, and we can talk about the revisions as part of the revised course as well. But because we were creating this second health opportunity, my teachers looked at state and national curricula samples from other school systems. And what they were able to do was kind of make sure that what fit for us in Frederick County Public Schools. So we didn't just adopt wholly the state framework. They split it up and kind of took a look at what would be best for ninth grade health and what would be best for 11th grade health. And that's why we created this proposed new course for health too. Thank you.
And Brian, those curriculum standards, are there curriculum standards listed in the bottom of the document for health that need to be reviewed for your course?
Yeah, everything's in there. Yes.
Got it. Okay. I just want to make sure the board sees that the mention of the course is here, but the curriculum standards are below that.
When I first looked at the documents, I'm like, whoa, a lot of pages. That's a lot of courses. And I'm like, oh, it's only a few courses. It's all appendices. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Any questions for Mr. Griffith?
I have a, go ahead. Oh, I do. So all of those headings, like there was like HE, 902.11, those are curriculum standards.
Yeah. Yes. So those are the standards, and then the objectives are down below. And so the objectives are the numbers. So for example, just looking, you said analyzing influences, the first one there, HE 902.11 is the standard analyzing influences, and then the objective 902.11.01.
And at what point does the state stop their mandate?
Mandate around what should be taught, Ms. Johnson?
Yeah.
So the question that we often hear, in my tenure as a school administrator and now in this role, we've seen the addition of financial literacy. We've seen the addition of environmental literacy. We've had changes in, enrolled in fourth year in mathematics. They do come pretty frequently from the state. So when that spigot change, what never comes is hey, we need you to do this, but nothing comes off, right? So they don't say, and by the way, take this off your plate. So that is an ongoing challenge of whether it's coming from the legislature that decides something should be taught, or whether it's from the state board. It comes from a lot of different directions, but there is no answer to that question. I do not believe, but thank you for posing it.
Mr. J, I think you had a question.
No, no question.
So are we good to move to social studies?
Yes, I've got something running around in my brain that something clicked about legislation and it's gone. So if it comes back up, I think we're I mean, I think it makes sense to split it up and try and hit them again, because you're done with the ninth grade and then you've got and I know, part of it is just healthy. That's what it was. Sorry. I saw a group of students, and this isn't you, Mr. Griffith, but I saw a group of students at a national school board thing, and all of them on the panel asked for financial literacy. And I'm like, interesting, I would love to see it if I know it's woven in a great elective. I'm not for making it a mandatory course, but that's what was running around in my brain, that students actually wanted that. But I think whether they want it or not, health course or learning about healthy living is
Well, Ms. Yoho, as you probably are aware, we get those fiscal notes that come from the legislative office for us who look at proposed legislation and say, hey, what would the impact be on your district? There was at least one piece of legislation that's proposed that actually requires a financial literacy fully contained course. Now, whether that makes it out of the process, you know how that works, but at least some people in the state are thinking about the need for that to be a standalone course. So that's just an FYI for the board, but we'll monitor that bill and see where it ends up.
So I would like to say that second health credit, I would love to see physical education, just like in ninth grade, we have health and fitness for life. I would love to see physical education be that second half credit. But we're also working, Nora McGackey and Christine Dr. Pearl are looking at having that self-contained elective financial literacy course. So I do know that some of the curriculum specialists are looking at that half credit block in order to support the schedule and to fit some things in.
I have just another question. It's just trying to, in my role as being a representative of the community, and then, touching it back here with integration with what we're offering as a school system. Just one of the things that just kind of grabs my attention is again, on one of the standards, it's 902.17.03, advocate for the innocence of a person who has been sexually mistreated, groomed, harassed, abused, assaulted, or exploited. And I'm wondering, on the advocacy, like, from what perspective would that be coming from? And who's involved with developing that framework of, like, the advocacy? And are we working with our local partners, like perhaps like Hartley House? Like, I just need to understand where the community ties into the curriculum.
So we partner not only with Hartley House, but also the state's attorney's office. I say all the time, you see all the different objectives that are on here and the scope that it covers, and going back to not just the state mandating it's a graduation course, but also the state legislator mandating. Unfortunately, there are lots of different laws that mandate that we teach specific things in health education. So because of that, I don't think our teachers need support and we need assistance. So we do partner with those other organizations. We're developing a plan to support even more with appropriate guest speakers as well, coming from the Child Advocacy Center, coming from the state's attorney's office, coming from Hartley House as well, and having, bringing them in as we develop curriculum, but also bringing them in to support our teachers as we're providing instruction as well.
And then there's one more question. Where for this proposed course, where would the materials be posted so that the public would have access to it?
So we do. Sorry, Dr. Cuppet.
Feel free to go ahead, Brian. You got it.
We do have the public site. And again, because it is part of the process will be similar to our current health education process. So at the secondary level, all of our schools have preview nights where they allow parents to come in, look at the different materials, get an overview of instruction and things like that. But again, we also have the public facing site where the education, the curriculum will be posted as well.
And if this course had a textbook, I'm not sure that we're going with an actual textbook adoption, but if we were, all textbooks, according to board policy and system regulation, would go on public display. In this case, there's not a textbook that's being selected for this particular course.
Yeah, and then on the public display, isn't that usually just like a period over the summer? Or do we have a lot? So again, just help me understand, because these are,
So
now that we've got some other big hurdles kind of resolved, I can like start to drill
Yeah.
into other things that have been like on my list.
This is what we call regular curriculum conversations, Ms. Johnson. We appreciate that. No, textbook review is an ongoing process, and so there's a publicly shared cycle of review dates and how the public can review that. And so that's why occasionally you'll see on your consent agenda approval of a novel here or a book there. And so that we couldn't do it all one summer and hit you with it. You would be overwhelmed as a board, and we'd be overwhelmed trying to jam it into that process. So to give you an example, my math, elementary and secondary math team are currently reviewing new primary textbooks for our program because our contract with our current vendor is coming to a close. And so we're trying to strategically get that done, get it out for public review, and get them to you all for approval so that we can go into the negotiations conversation about a purchase and, professional learning associated with that, and so on and so forth. So any course that is the way the regulation works, our primary text resources are for any course that pretty much all kids will take. So for instance, a third grade math book is going to be shared by all third grade students. An American government textbook, for instance, if we chose to do a textbook there, most kids are going to take that. So those are considered the first level. Then there's a second level, and think of that as like the book for an elective course. Maybe a textbook over here for, an arts credit that not all kids are going to take. That has a slightly different process, but both require public review. And then there's an unusual statement down there about what supplemental is. And the language in supplemental is pretty vague. And that does also have an associated process with it. In addition, if you remember from recent conversations, and Brian, if you could go back and maybe do a quick review since it's come up, there had also been an approval process for certain sensitive materials, and we had a process, and we are now using a separate process. And Brian, if you could just summarize the difference that recently the board agreed to do as a part of that change.
So that deals with our Family Life Advisory Committee, which is a board-appointed committee. We have representation from all 10 feeder systems, as well as the board and the student member, Mr. Bass, and the student member sits on it currently, as well as other key people. So we do have a domestic violence partner who's on there. We do have the health department who sits on there, a medical practitioner who sits on the committee. So that committee now is in the approval and the process. They actually approve the items. Whereas before, the board member and the student board, and Jamie and I are non-voting members, we are just liaisons. Now with the new process, the board member and student member are both voting members, and that board, that committee will approve the different resources related to family life and human sexuality.
And so again, just kind of helping me understand the framework. If a member of the public wanted to see a book that's used in a particular grade, where could they go and find it, short of like going to the school?
So, well, they would have to contact the central office, and we'd have to make an arrangement for them. I will tell you that if a parent wants to see say a third grade math book, if they have a third grader, they're going to see a third grade math book. Are you talking about them being able to see that in advance of their child taking the course? Or in advance of approval?
I know that, there's been like commentary that, when I'm out there's been commentary made. And I actually was asking myself, like, well, what would I do if like, where does the public have access to information? And in my mind, I thought, well, do we have, somewhere at central office or at the, Seabird's Seabird Arts Library, do we have like a reference shelf that just has every general education book, and if not, why not?
Yeah.
I guess
So
Can I
ease of
just jump
access.
in 1 minute? I'm sorry, because you're asking two different things. Now, when a book is in approval, it is at Seabird Arts, isn't it, Dr. Cuppett? It used to be. Now it's also accessible online. That's a new thing. People used to have to physically go to the library. When it was in the approval phase, they could go see it. Now they can see it online. I almost always run through those. A couple of times I've had to contact Mary Jo Richmond or Dr. Cobb and say, hey, I'm having a little glitchiness with this, but they're very easily accessible online now, or you can go physically see it. Once it's approved and in the schools, it's going to depend on which school, and the parent could just go to the school and ask to see that, or if their child is using it, hey, can you bring that home so I can look at it? And it would depend on whether it is a material that's sent home or not. And now I'll let you take it back, Dr. Cuppett.
Yeah, I think some of the conversation that you're hearing, Ms. Johnson, is not, I just got off the phone maybe it was the beginning of this week. It's been a long week, with a parent who had a question about our approval process and what goes to the board and what doesn't go to the board. And so I think there is a growing interest in the transparency of our instructional materials. And I will tell you, we also reviewed several pieces of proposed legislation around transparency of materials. And I know that in other states in the United States, there have been actually laws passed related to transparency of materials. First of all, everything that we have as an instructional resource, short of it being, so we have to be cautious about publishing a copyrighted material that's in digital form. Those are the ones that can get a little unnerving to our publishers because they might see it as a violation of those. But if anybody wanted to see one of our textbooks, they could either go to the school and ask to see it, or if that wasn't easy, we could get them a copy. Most of my team have copies of the text that we use. Where I think that sometimes I think families are seeking more transparency is, I've literally had a request, can I see every assignment that's given to my child in every class before they get it? And that's a very obviously a difficult thing to accommodate. Because that would require every teacher for that student, in this case, it would have been 7 teachers, to send home lesson planning and information, a week or so in advance for the parent to review, which isn't a functional thing that we do in public schools. I've also had parents ask that everything that their child would see should be placed publicly forward on a website. Well, if you could imagine, you have 140 staff members at a high school trying to post everything publicly forward on a website would be challenging. Now, I will tell you this. If teachers are using Schoology and are uploading assignments in Schoology, parents have visibility of that unless the assignment is in a Google environment, because that environment is a protected environment. It's kind of a walled garden. But they can always look over the shoulder of their kid's account as well. Like, let me see the assignment that you're working on. So we actually have more, I think, we have more transparency in what happens in classrooms now than we've ever had. And any request by a parent to see a material, we'll track that down for them if they're having difficulty getting their hands on it. But like Ms. Yoho mentioned, if the kid's using a sociology book in class, the kid can bring it home and share it with the parent for them to review. There's no prohibition against that, so to speak.
But again, could we just have somewhere in a public location a reference shelf that just has a copy of every kind of globally used book in the system?
We could certainly look at that.
Here's one of the problems, I think, and then Mr. Johnson, I'll get to you. It's just, as a teacher in the past, the 3rd grade social studies book at the time was one that was in question. We did not teach that book from cover to cover. So parents might have taken it, gotten it, and it did go home. And sometimes they don't. If you don't have enough for every student, if classes have to share, there might not be enough and the student might not be taking it home, but a parent could certainly request a copy to go. But if a parent looked at a book and said, well, I don't like this part, well, that may not be something that we even taught. It's difficult to match up a textbook exactly to your curriculum, and the curriculum comes first. And then I was on that many years ago, probably 20 years ago, that selection committee, and we picked the book that best matched our curriculum, not vice versa. So parents might be getting upset about something that wasn't even necessarily taught or used from that book. So it'd be better to sit down and have a conversation with a teacher or with an individual school. But I'm just thinking, how big does a public library have? They could come to central office. Certainly, if you're talking about a public place, it's not exactly public, but it would have to be a pretty big place to get all the resources in, because a lot of people are using a lot of different resources. But I don't mean to interrupt, and I know Mr. Johnson has a question, but you finish, Ms. Johnson.
Again, I'm just an advocate for transparency, and I think I would fully agree that the system is not trying to hide anything, but I think it's incumbent upon us to make our materials easily accessible to the public.
Yeah, Ms. Johnson, I think we do that now, and I think
Okay.
there's another process that's in place that that you as a board have put in as kind of a real safeguard. So we have an ombuds, and if for some reason a parent felt that, hey, I'm not getting the access to the documents or to the textbooks that I think I need, one call from the ombuds to me would be, hey, a parent at this school can't see this textbook. I'd be like, great, I'll make sure that they have that on the next day that their kid goes home, whether we send it out to them or whether we reach out to the school. My guess is a situation like that was probably more of a miscommunication than a deliberate attempt to keep a textbook out of a family's hand. And to Ms. Yoho's point, I think if we put every approved, first of all, to have a copy of every approved book we'd be required to go and get them from the schools and take a copy or purchase them. And physically, I don't know what size space we would need to be able to do that. And then there's the question of access to that space. So do you come by appointment? Are you buzzed into an FCPS facility? I'm almost 100% certain that our friends at Seaborough Arts would not want to give up that kind of shelf space for something that might be used 10 or 12 times a year, based on the inquiries that we tend to get here. In other words, if a parent is asking about a curriculum resource and it's resolved at the school level, I'll never hear about that. What I do is occasionally we'll get a question about a resource that we have, or they'll want to know if the resource is in our schools. All of our media centers are searchable. So if I'm a parent, I had a parent recently from a school wanted to know if a certain book was in the library. We showed them where they could go in and access the library catalog. They simply type in the name of the book and they would determine whether or not that school has that book in the library media center. And so that's very transparent. You can search just like you go over to Seaborough Arts to see if there's a book there. So I think there's a lot of different ways to approach that, but certainly, Ms. Johnson, if you've run into a citizen in our community that feels like they've not gotten the information they needed, direct them either directly to me or to the ombuds, which will come to me anyway, and we'll be happy to serve that. I think we should look at that rather than necessarily trying to create or find a physical space, access, somebody to monitor that space, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, it's just keeping a focus on transparency. So
we appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. J.
No worries. My comments and questions are pretty much in line with what you're saying, but I think we can really alleviate some of the pushback from what you're asking. It's really not a hard lift. So, for example, right now in my classroom, every teacher in my county is required to have a homepage, and on the homepage you're to list the text and resources you use in class. So every parent that has you in class can see what you're using. So if we have Schoology, which it shouldn't be a hard lift, whatever they're using, have a link to it, or if it only comes in print, I don't think that's the case anymore. You have a link to that textbook. So every class that the child has, you go to the teacher's homepage, boom, there's the book they're using right there. And this for review, I think that just saying we have a night anymore is kind of like, we have to use the technology we've been given during this time. So it should be like some a virtual option where that book night review is like, is there, and someone's there like, live in the session. They can put the PDFs on into the chat and the hi, I'm here, just for the same time frame that's going on live in person. We have it online. Somebody's monitoring the chat. We have all the books here submitted to you in the Q&A. You go to Q&A right now. What tool use right now? If you go to your triple dots here, Q&A, you can put PDFs, and they can be standing PDFs links into the chat. People can view it online with somebody in person. On our homepage, we can easily have a link on our homepage, on the front page homepage, to say, hey, here are the books we're considering bringing in the classroom. And it's not about like them asking us going to them, us being upfront with them, us showing them, because they didn't even know it was available. Oh, I didn't know we could do that. Oh, wow. That's going to build trust. Just doing all the hoops of like, come to your ombuds or go through here and go through there. That's going to discredit us, and it has. And we have to change that behavior. We have to just be out front. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're reviewing. And if we have a case where a book has something inside of it that we don't like, we then front forward and put an asterisk there. Chapters 5, 7, 25 will not be used in SCPS. We're using it for chapters 8, 17, 24. And the things for parents is they don't know what they don't know. My daughter went through SCPS top to bottom, and I never got a request for, can your child watch this video? Can your child go through this right here? I've never got that at all. Never emailed to my home. Never a letter from her in school. I thought we did that, but she went through and got whatever people wanted to give her. They gave her from top to bottom. Video discussions. I was never asked, is this okay for your child to watch? Are you okay with that? And I thought we were doing that, but as a parent who's seen the top to bottom, thus far, I've never if 2 children in SCPS, one finished all the way through, I never got asked, is this what you want your child to view today? And so we have to make sure that we are face forward with our parents. They're in charge, not us. And so I think it's really, imperative that we are upfront with them, that we make it, beyond transparency. We, like Dr. Merkel said, give more information, but they're like, okay, that's enough. I don't need to know all that. You keep that, okay? That's how we need to be with our parents. So where it's right there, accessible, upfront, and they don't even work because they go, oh, it's right over there if you need it. That's where we need to be. So, yeah.
Do we want to move to the next course, Ms. Johan?
I believe we've had our questions answered. So yes, let's move on.
Right. And let me just clarify with Mr. Griffith first. Mr. Griffith, the standards that you have in the curriculum document, the second document, are those related to this health course that you just shared, or are those different?
So those are different. So that's the health one.
All right. Well, we'll come back to that here in a minute then. Okay. So the next course is a secondary social studies course that we've given you kind of a preview to already, which is the Black African American Studies course. And Colleen Bernard, who is our secondary social studies curriculum specialist, is here to share some information with you.
Good morning.
Can I just say really, really quick, what a wonderful job at the Model UN. I was only there for part of the morning, but the keynote speaker was so inspirational, and you just did such a fabulous job, all of you. And you with the technology, Ms. Bernard, so flexible and so just turning on a dime, acting like nothing was wrong. Let's do this. Let's do this. I was just impressive as always.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yoho. Really appreciate you taking the time to be there. Thank you to the board members this morning for your time. What we have, as Dr. Cuppett said, to present to you is the standards for the course that you approved. You didn't approve the standards yet. You approved the course description in the fall. And so then we promised you that we would bring the standards forward during our normal process in the spring. But we did that because we wanted to be able to get the course into this year's course guide for enrollment for fall of 2022. And we were able to do that. So students were able to enroll in the course. This is a new course. This is not piloted because we didn't want to restrict access. We wanted to be able to provide opportunity across the district for students' needs. So what you have here are the standards for that course that were developed as part of a work group We had 6 teachers from across the county in different schools actively participating. We started that work last summer in course development and finalized it just recently in the last month or so.
Have
Any
any
questions? Sorry.
No questions, thank you.
The only thing I had was how can you cover all this in one course? So
It's a lot, but there is, the beauty of a studies course, it is expansive. It goes beyond the history, and it really provides us with that opportunity to pull in the totality of the experience. So teachers are really committed. The teachers who worked on the course for the most part will probably be delivering the course. And so we've got a pretty solid sequence ready to go for them.
And to your point, Ms. Johnson, anytime we do a pilot course, one of the reasons, a pilot, or in this case, a new course, iterations will occur with, curriculum resources or materials. We may realize that, some topics aren't getting enough attention. And so we might want to expand those where we might reduce in others. It's, I always say the first time a teacher does a lesson plan, they make a lot of corrections, and the second time around, it's a whole lot better. So that kind of iterative process is what we use in all of our curriculum work. So that'll certainly apply to this course.
yeah, just some of the key words in there. Not only is there a lot of content, but just the subject or the adjectives in there: discuss, evaluate, review, analyze. Those are all time intensive processes. And so I just thought, from my instructional background, I thought, wow, how are you going to do this in one course? That was just, I like the content, but I just hope we're doing it justice. And I know it'll continue to evolve, but that was just like my first impression of it was it's a lot. And I know it'll work out fine, but this, from my background, was my initial thought when I was reviewing this.
Yeah, that's having taught 3rd grade where there's like so much packed into it. Yes. But my last year of teaching at 4th grade, we did a great unit from MSDE in language arts, actions, or was it actions speak louder? I think something like that. Anyway, we did Plessy v. Ferguson with the 4th graders and Brown v. Board of Ed. Now, would they remember Plessy v. Ferguson? No, but hopefully they remember, separate but equal, and how then really it wasn't. So hopefully they'll come with some background that they've gotten through elementary, through middle school, and it's not, you would hope, the first time they're hearing some of these, but for some of them it may be. Yeah, it looks like a great course. It will be interesting to see how it gets shaped as the time goes on.
And I think another thing to consider, Ms. Johnson, is the amount of seat time that a high school student has with a course like this. We run about an 87-minute block, I think, on average in our high schools, times 5 days a week. So that's a lot of seat time compared to, say, a college level course, if you think about it. So there's a lot of opportunity for that there. Hey,
Mr. J, I'm sorry, you said you had no questions on this one, I believe. All right, I think we can go on then.
Okay, so that concludes our requests and recommendations related to new pilot or continuing courses. So we'll be seeking approval from that through the consent agenda on the 23rd. So the next section that we have is around curriculum revisions. So these are changes to standards. The first section is around elementary health. And so Mr. Hitchner, Jamie Hitchner, who is our elementary health physical education curriculum specialist, is going to talk to you a little bit about elementary health. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Yoho. Good morning, Ms. Johnson, and good morning, Mr. J. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're excited to bring forward for your consideration in elementary health. Primarily, there's not a significant change in terms of content. The significant change that we want to bring to you is the fact that our current standards are going to be repackaged into a more of a stronger emphasis on skills-based health education, as Mr. Griffith alluded to earlier. And so the draft that you have in front of you or has been provided to you, as I mentioned, repackages that material. So we still will have our similar themes. These are all part of our current instructional program in mental and emotional health, alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, personal consumer health, family life and human sexuality, safety and injury prevention, nutrition and fitness, as well as disease prevention and control. And what we're hoping upon board consideration for approval is that we can recraft our lessons to have that emphasis on more of a skills-based approach. And those skills would be accessing valid and reliable information, analyzing influences, decision-making, goal setting, interpersonal communication, self-management, and advocacy. And so really the document that's been presented for your consideration, number one, has had a crosswalk between our current FCPS framework that's been approved. It's already been aligned to MSDE framework that has been state approved, as well as it's aligned to the current local approved framework for our middle schools. So this is a nice sequence upon your consideration for approval, a nice sequence as we move our students and giving them the fundamental skills, the fundamental background knowledge, so that they can then do a more apt job to apply those skills as they go into the middle school curriculum and then further into these additional high school courses. So really that's the gist of it. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
It's helpful to be on the right page because all of a sudden I started seeing other words that didn't seem to make sense, and I was in social studies. So it's like, oh, get back on the right page. Yeah, those are interesting because I don't think, and I remember Mr. Griffith talking about that as well months ago, the idea of kind of evaluating sources. And we know, you watch commercials and people, they're trying to sell you things, and the idea that then students, to me initially it doesn't seem to fit with PE, but then you really think the health side, and it really does, and being able to make good choices based on weeding out bad information. I see commercials and I always go, all right, who's this from? And it went right along with a lesson I taught. I think that was maybe, 4th and 5th grade with writing, where you got something from the Milk Council and they were trying to push chocolate milk in schools. And it's like, let's see who's pushing this idea. So I think it goes very much along with that of, understanding biases and who might be asking you. So I think it's a really good thing because there's an onslaught of information, of course, that we're all deluged with daily. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Nothing from Mr. or Ms. Johnson? All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hitcher. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. So the next, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You want me to speak about physical education?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you had one more. So sorry about that, Mr. Hitcher.
Oh, that's okay. For the board's consideration, we are presenting grade level outcomes for pre-kindergarten students. As you know, we're onboarding more pre-K programs throughout, and past practice, we have not had curriculum standards. And so we wanted to present these for your consideration so that upon implementation, our schools, our teachers feel supported with good, strong developmental sequence of progressions so that the pre-K students can be offered really a fully aligned curriculum. Currently, they don't have one in existence, to be honest with you. So again, these pre-K standards have been vetted through MSDE. They're aligned to the state. We have reached out to our colleagues across the state in neighboring counties, and it's really been a really great process in a sense that a lot of my colleagues around the state have kind of joined forces to come up with a package for your consideration. And I think each local is doing something of similar capacity to support their teachers and support those pre-K programs, those young little movers, as we like to call them. Happy to take any questions.
I love the different standards with creates curled shapes with their body. That, as you say, the mover is very cute. Identifies personal space. So, yeah, interesting. Very good. Any questions, Ms. Johnson, Mr. Johnson? Seems pretty straightforward.
Not this time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, which of course gets my mind going off on the whole who do I need to talk to about where we are with implementing pre-K with the community schools and all. So, but that's not for you. So,
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hitchner. Enjoy your day. All right. So the next one is elementary social studies. And I know that Kim Day, who's our elementary curriculum specialist for social studies and STEM, had been giving you a preview in the curriculum updates that these new standards were coming. So she's going to take an opportunity to share those with you right now. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Day.
Thank you. Good morning. It's good to see everyone. Yeah, as I shared back in October, I am ready to put forth a revision to the elementary social studies essential curriculum standards. The reason we're doing this is that the Maryland State Department of Education recently revised the elementary social studies framework. So the revisions I've submitted align our FCPS essential curriculum with this new MSDE framework. All grade levels include content in the 6 Maryland State Social Studies standards of civics, peoples of the nations, and world, geography, economics, history, and they also incorporate skills and processes of social studies. I'm seeking approval for these revisions, and if they are approved by the full board on March 23rd, we will begin to adjust our units and our curricular resources so that they align with these new standards. We will also be reviewing text resources using an equity lens that align with these new standards in hopes to add these new text resources to 4th and 5th grade along with ELA integration in the coming year.
Mr. Johnson keeps moving on my screen, so I'm like, where did he go? Nope, there he is. And I don't think it was him. I think Mr. Hitchner might have gotten off. Any questions, Mr. or Ms. Johnson?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Day.
No questions here.
Oh, sorry.
I think he said no questions.
No questions. Okay. All right. So Ms. Day, you are free to roam the planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. So the next area that we have, I think we're switching over to our secondary conversation. And secondary health education is Mr. Griffith returning to us again. Brian, it's all yours.
Thank you. So this is a revision to our current health education graduation course. So because we were adding, we have to add that second health education course. My teachers over the last year looked at our current process, our current current resources information, and they developed this program. And again, it was just in order to create 2 separate courses. Again, we did follow the state framework. We did follow some guidance resources from other people. We did make a few changes. In some of the stuff was looking at adding on an environmental piece. There is very limited on there, but one of the issues was most content areas were asked to identify some environmental health. Some of the other things, nutrition and fitness changed to healthy eating. And so there were some language changed in our healthy eating standard in order to make sure that we were addressing best practices in that format, looking at body image, making sure that we were following current practices and how we eat. We did not want to create stigmas related to body image or over or under eating or things like that. So there was some language changed in that healthy eating section as well. Thank you.
Yes, I'm starting to see with my oldest granddaughter, she'll be 10 next month, some of the effects of social media that I didn't fortunately have to deal with my own children. And I was just trying to talk to her about, she was showing me some people, she's very much into anime and manga, and when I'm trying to keep up and learn. But she was showing me somebody on TikTok, and I said, yes, but that person, that's not what that person really looks like, and look, false eyelashes, and she's got a wig and she's wearing contacts. That's obviously not, purple is not her natural eye, and just trying to get through. Because I know that, there's this whole thing of, I want to look like that. Why can't I look like that? Aside from the fear of missing out, just all the psychological and social depressing aspects of social media that we just need to try to protect our children, especially our girls, from. So body image is very important, obviously, and very difficult to combat.
Well, they call it a social media profile because they only show one side. So yeah, social media, and we have had objectives related to social media in the entire secondary health education program.
Yeah, it's what a battle there. Hard to win. All right. So any questions, Ms. Johnson? I think she's reading. I know I've been shuffling. I printed off just the courses, but not all the standards, because that was a lot of pages, but wanted to be able to report to the other board members at the meeting today. And so I'm shifting between various documents with a dog climbing on me. All right. Do you have any question, Ms. Johnson, or are you just taking it all in?
No, I just, it all, I guess there's people on these continuums, and you just like wonder, like, where is the appropriate like place for subject matter, and in some regards, like, well, this is probably too late for this, and then on other things, like, it might be too early for this, but then it's like, well, that's, in our community, we're going to have a continuum of where people are at. So it's just kind of like my little inner turmoil there of delivering the right content at the right time. So.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get any arguments here from anybody.
Yeah, I have too many questions is
Yeah.
my problem.
Well, and you can always email Mr. Griffith and or Dr. Cuppett.
I meant that like figuratively. It's just like, as a society and educating, and in our community, like this intersectionality of anything having to do with society, that's all. It's just a big, how do you deliver one set of content to a society that just spans the spectrum? That's all.
Yeah. Not an easy task for sure. And that's why, and then you've got legislators putting things in, and state departments of education and ultimately everybody's trying to do what they think is best for students and society at large. But who's to say who's right? And I think that's your dilemma right there. So yeah, it's I taught third grade for 11 years. So I taught personal body safety. It was never a fun unit because students always, well, my mother does that, or my dad, and so then you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's like, yeah, it's a little SWAT on the bottom, or, something innocuous that is not child abuse, but the questions and the mind going, and it was never just an easy, fun unit to teach, because, and these things anything can possibly stir up, questions and thoughts, and that's where the parents obviously come in. And I know, secondary health would be different, but any units in elementary or middle school, like family life, parents know when it's going to be taught. They can come in and preview the material, so that they have some idea, and so that they can talk to their child at home, because a lot of times they are going to have questions that may not get answered in school. So Yeah, fun stuff.
And I do want to bring up one of the things, and we have those same previews and everything else, but one of the things that the Family Life Committee is trying to look at and what we're trying to develop and support is the resources to support parents as well. And just as you said, the unfortunate reality is most people are uncomfortable talking about, addressing some of these topics with their kids. So we do have some partnerships. We do have some of those medical professionals, and they have pulled out some resources. But what we would like to do is to create some simple one-pagers, possible magnets, things that they can put and support their own discussions at appropriate levels for their students as well. So we hope to have those developed here soon in the spring, and then hope to be able to share those with parents in the fall. Just as a side note, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you,
And I
Brian.
think that's an important thing to know, is because, a lot of the questions that Ms. Johnson and Mr. Johnson were focusing, thoughts and comments or questions, were related to how do we better communicate with our parents, who are an integral part. If we're going to be true partners, how do we serve them well, give them the information they need, and make them feel like we're including them. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Enjoy your day. All right, our final, I believe this is our last one that we have available right now, is secondary social studies. In this case, the course is sociology. And so Ms. Bernard will join us again to talk about some of the updates associated with this course. Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you. So what you have here is a refresh of our current sociology course. We updated these standards. You're going to see more of this refreshing of elective courses in social studies. It's been a long time since a lot of those standards have been updated across courses, and we're just kind of taking them as based on the popularity of the course. Sociology is one of our most popular courses. So what we did is we had a team of veteran sociology teachers look at the current American Sociological Association standards and do an alignment for us for this course. So what you're going to see is that framework here with four basic themes that are part of the ASA standards, and then the sociological content addressed in the standards under each theme. Do you have any questions?
No, it sounds interesting. I want to go back and do this again, and as I said, after being at the Model UN, those kids are so amazing. It's like I feel like I've wasted my life. So no, it's good.
Those kids got there because you put your life in the classroom, Ms. Yoho. That's how they get there.
That's yes, all the very dedicated people. I counted myself fortunate to be one of them, and did try. So, but I want to go back and do it again, sort of in another life. But anyway, not at this time. Anything you have, Ms. Johnson?
No, and all the feedback I've had from the, in particular, Model UN has just been wonderful. And I think I think we do a really good job in a lot of areas. So just want to balance that out and pass along my thanks and appreciation to everybody involved with engaging our students.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's looks good then. I'm just, these documents just scream how much work has gone into this, and the process that I know, from doing curriculum writing. It's interesting, it's frustrating, but it's rewarding, but a lot of work goes into it. And so we want to thank, certainly all the people that have taken all the time to spend hours doing this in addition to their regular jobs. So I think that's it. Dr. Cuppett?
Okay, thank you. So we would be asking you to move those forward for the consent agenda on March 23rd for full board approval.
Yes, and I missed the chance with Mr. J here. I was waiting, Ms. Johnson, until you got here for the minutes. So since 2/3 of us is a majority, did you have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
No.
Okay, so we will check with Mr. J, but unless you hear different, those will stand approved as written. All right, now moving on.
Yeah, so I think the next would be looking ahead to future agenda items. So for April 13th, we'll have a full visual and performing arts update. That's both secondary and elementary. So Ms. Thomas and Ms. Hirschmann will be there to share that. And then an update around intervention from Ms. Bingman. We are confirming the 9 o'clock time. I only need to hear back from Ms. Thomas, but I looked at her calendar. It doesn't look like it's going to be an issue. So Jen, you're okay at 9 o'clock? Okay. So we'll advertise, we'll work with Miss Rich to make the changes for the public announcement and so on and so forth.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want that sounded like a pretty one that could be kind of packed with a lot of information. And so, you know, I didn't think we wanted to try to shortchange it. And frankly, if we get done a little early, I don't think the board members would mind a little break before we dive in for a full day. It will be a full day board.
It looks like that. I'm looking at the agenda. I think maybe an hour and 10 minutes might be adequate.
Okay.
So it looks like you could have a break before you go on to your next activity.
Very good. Very
Okay.
good. All right. Thank you so much. And if there's nothing else for the good of the group, the meeting stands adjourned. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Bye-bye.